Love frequently generates its own tragic narratives within the complicated tapestry of human emotions, and it can occasionally result in devastating repercussions. Both of these things are happening all the time. One of the most infamous characteristics of love is its capacity to create its own sad stories. It is a dreadful picture of the treacherous depths of a love triangle, which is marked by the transformation of desire into deception and the betrayal of trust by economic greed. The tragic story of Diogo Goncalves is a terrible one. The turning of attachment into dishonesty is a defining characteristic of this love triangle. People are susceptible because love is a force that blinds them to the shortcomings of their beloved and then engulfs them in a domain where reason normally takes a back seat. Love is a force that makes people vulnerable. Love is the force that causes people to be particularly susceptible. People are more susceptible to being hurt when they are influenced by the power of love. Diogo's story, which is a tale of affection, deception, and finally betrayal, unfolds in the midst of this tumultuous terrain. It is a story that incorporates all of these components. These elements are all intertwined throughout the narrative. It was on July 17, 1999, during the month of July, when Diogo Goncalves was presented to the world for the first time. His birth took place in the scenic town of Albufeira, which is located on the southern border of Portugal. He was born there. As a result of the fact that he had spent his childhood in the charming and gorgeous environment of this coastal hideaway, he exemplified the qualities of simplicity and modesty. The peaceful rhythms of life in Albufeira, which Diogo felt to be a huge influence, had a considerable impact on Diogo's personality by exerting a significant amount of influence. From a young age, he had a profound affinity for computers, which sparked his ambition to pursue a profession in programming so that he could fulfill his potential. Computer programming was his area of expertise in the workplace. In addition to his natural fascination with technology and his excitement for it, he had the ambition of having a career in the field. Additionally, he was enthusiastic about technology. On the other hand, fate sent the Goncalves family a devastating blow, which completely ruined their ideal life. The blow that they received is one that they will never forget. Diogo's father was brought to the verge of death by a terrible stroke, and his mother was tragically killed by a reckless driver. Both of these events occurred in the same year. Diogo's mother and father were both on the verge of ending their lives. Both of Diogo's parents passed away as a result of the car accident in which they were simultaneously involved. The young Diogo was thrown into the depths of adversity as a consequence of these incomprehensible losses, which threw a shadow over his existence, which had been in a state of tranquility up until that moment. Diogo was able to persevere in spite of the raging storm of difficulties that surrounded him, and he was able to successfully traverse the perilous waters of adolescence, so emerging as a shining example of endurance. In the process of obtaining his degree and securing employment with unyielding drive, he exemplified the principles of diligence and reliability. These are the ideals that he exemplified. When Diogo Goncalves was only starting out on his journey toward adulthood, he found himself immersed in the tranquil atmosphere of Albufeira. During the years that were to follow, he was utterly oblivious to the turbulent challenges that were going to be encountered. As a result of his lack of knowledge, he was unaware that his quest would bring him into contact with other individuals whose hearts were driven by more profound desires. As a result, he was building the groundwork for a catastrophe that would have effects that would spread far beyond the peaceful waters of his village. She was not only from the same gorgeous village of Albufeira as Diogo Goncalves, but she was also from Portugal. Maria Alvaro was a person who was veiled in mystery and enveloped in a sense of intrigue. She was a person who was surrounded by a sense of intrigue. Maria's early years were distinguished by struggle and persistence as she navigated the challenges of living without the presence of her biological father. Her early years were marked by these characteristics. Through a combination of drive and perseverance, she was able to triumph over these various obstacles. Her family did not have a lot of money when she was born, and she hailed from a family that was not wealthy. Although Maria's upbringing was marked by a variety of challenges of varied degrees, she refused to allow herself to be appraised based on the circumstances of her life. This was despite the fact that her childhood was defined by a number of obstacles. Through a combination of steely determination and unyielding determination, she crafted a path for herself in order to accomplish her objectives of achieving independence and self-sufficiency. Her goals served as the driving force behind all that she did over the course of her life. Maria and Diogo Goncalves' lives began to become intertwined in a delicate dance of chance encounters and possibilities that had been set the moment they came into contact with one another. This was the moment that fate took action. The interactions that took place between them, which took place while they were working together in a busy tourist spa, caused Diogo's heart to be filled with a glimmer of curiosity, which in turn drove a flame of affection to erupt, which would eventually consume him. Maria was concealing a secret beneath the surface of her friendliness and the fellowship she had with other people, despite the fact that she was generally friendly. She was having an affair with Mariana Finesse, another mysterious lady whose presence would cast a shadow over Diogo's heart, while Diogo was unaware of the circumstances behind the affair. Mariana Finesse was the woman with whom she was having an affair in the outset. While they were going through the furnace of their shared challenges and goals, Mariana Finesse, a lady who was both mysterious and attractive, formed a strong relationship with Maria Alvaro. This connection was the driving force behind the strength of their love. Within the furnace where it was initially established, this connection was made. In the same way as Maria did, Mariana hails from a family that went through difficult times financially. Her hopes for a better life became entwined with the strands of fate that connected her to Maria. This was because of the fact that those threads created a connection between them. Despite the fact that Mariana and Maria had exceptionally high expectations for themselves, they found themselves in a circumstance in which they were unable to overcome the difficulties they were experiencing financially. There was a tantalizing chance that their hopes for a better future were on the verge of being unreachable. This was a possibility that they were very excited about. Through her desperation, Mariana was able to satisfy her insatiable desire for wealth and prosperity, which in turn drove her to go to extremes that would challenge the boundaries of what is considered to be within the realm of what is considered to be moral. Through the use of her alluring allure and calculated guile, Mariana managed to ensnare Diogo in a web of deceit. She woven a tapestry of lies and false promises that buried the truth beneath layers of illusion. Because of this web of lies, Diogo became entangled in it. Diogo was entirely wrapped up in this web of dishonesty, which led to his downfall. Even though Diogo was falling more and more under her spell, he remained to be naive to the evil intents that were veiled beneath her charming facade. This was despite the fact that he was getting more and more under her spell. The devilish scheme that Maria and Mariana conceived was conceived with the objective of exploiting Diogo's vulnerability in order to achieve their goal. In their attempt to acquire money that had been obtained dishonestly, they were unified in their quest. In order to break free from the constraints of poverty, they created a plan that would allow them to steal his wealth and release themselves from their confinement. Maria was the one who served as the bait, and Mariana was the one who played the role of the architect of deception. Together, they set out on a treacherous trip that would ultimately result in misery and betrayal against one another. This journey will ultimately lead to both of them becoming unfaithful to one another. Maria Alvaro and Mariana Finesse ensnared Diogo Goncalves in a game of love and betrayal that had the potential to be harmful to their lives. This game took place in the shadows of the sun-drenched lanes of Albufeira, where they hid their actual intentions beneath layers of deceit. As their twisted plot unfolded, the victim, who was oblivious of the dangerous depths that lurked beneath the surface of his seemingly perfect existence, was on the approach of disaster. He was on the verge of being killed. His life was on the point of being tragic. It was not until a considerable amount of time had passed that he became conscious of the threat that was lurking concealed beneath the surface of his life. The way that Maria held herself changed, and the mask of disinterest that she had been wearing before gave way to a newfound interest in the young man who was unaware of her intentions. Maria's newfound interest in the young man manifested itself in a different way. Her realization that Diogo had lately been handed an inheritance led to the occurrence of this event, which took place after she heard about it. Before she could accomplish what she set out to do, she intended to catch Diogo in the complex web of lies that she had woven. She was looking forward to accomplishing her goal, which was to achieve money and happiness. She had ideas of both of these things racing through her head. Maria devised a strategy to create an ostensibly pleasant evening with the purpose of enticing Diogo into her perfectly built trap, which she had meticulously prepared. To accomplish this, she enticed him into falling into her trap by assuring him that she would provide him with warmth and affection. Diogo readily gave in to her charms, despite the fact that he was unconscious of the danger that was waiting for him. In spite of the fact that she looked stunning, he was completely unaware of the threat that was hiding beneath the surface of her appearance. During the course of the evening, Maria took advantage of the opportunity that presented itself by sneaking a powerful sedative into Diogo's cup behind his back. This caused his views to become clouded, and as a result, he was unable to put up a fight against her machinations. Diogo took another sip, and as he did so, the tendrils of sleepiness wrapped themselves around him, drawing him further into a nightmare world that was full of treachery and deceit. Diogo then took another taste. When Maria made an attempt to suffocate Diogo, she placed her hands around his throat in a frantic attempt to muffle his ignorant protests. She did this in an attempt to take his life. It was at this very moment that Maria's true intentions went into the spotlight. When Diogo was made incapable of functioning as a result of the sedative, it became extremely clear that Maria's true intentions were revealed. In contrast, the evening was destroyed when fate intervened and prevented her evil ideas from being a reality, which was a tragic turn of events. This prevented the evening from being a success. Maria and Mariana took advantage of the opportunity that was offered to them by Diogo's illness and stole his inheritance in a merciless manner so that they could capitalize on it. They did this so that they could gain from it. As a consequence of their possessiveness, they attained levels of wickedness that are incomprehensibly high. Despite the knowing that Diogo's life was in jeopardy, they started on a horrible journey to dispose of his body, and their activities were veiled in secrecy and deception. To get rid of his body, they were resolute in their pursuit. Shockwaves were shot through the tranquil streets of Albufeira when it was discovered that Diogo had vanished. This discovery occurred at the precise moment when daybreak broke on a world that would be transformed for all eternity. Every passing moment brought about a tightening of the tendrils of mistrust that surrounded Maria and Mariana, casting a shade of uncertainty over the perfectly created mask that they had established for themselves through their efforts. Maria and Mariana found themselves trapped in the web of the legal system as the evidence against them continued to build. This brought about the situation in which they found themselves. Their once invincible castle of falsehoods, which was continually crumbling apart, was brought down by the weight of truth and justice, which made it impossible for them to defend themselves. While the sound of claims and denials reverberated around the rooms where interviews were taking place, the entire extent of their wrongdoings started to become clear. This occurred at the same moment. In the middle of a sea of contradictory testimonies and intricate webs of deception, the wheels of justice continued to grind ahead relentlessly, their unyielding march towards truth and accountability, leaving no stone untouched until they reached their destination. This is the truth of the position that we are in. In the processes that took place in the sacred halls of justice, where Maria and Mariana were being tried for the charges that they had done, The presence of Diogo Goncalves was a key aspect that played a role in the proceedings. Their futures were in a certain state of doubt during the time that the hearings were being held, and this anxiety was widespread. As a result of the terrible death of Diogo Goncalves, the previously impenetrable mask that Maria Alvaro and Mariana Finesse had been wearing was shattered by the harsh light of truth and justice. Unfortunately, this transpired as a consequence of the unfortunate accident that took place. The nefarious schemes that Maria Alvaro and Mariana Finesse had been plotting were able to be brought to light for everyone to see as a direct consequence of this. While the wheels of justice were moving, the echoes of their transgressions resonated down the halls of time. This occurred during the time that justice was being carried out, a terrifying reminder of the fickle nature of trust and the darkness that lies dormant within the human heart. This acted as a reminder of both of these characteristics. Upon initial inspection, it appeared as though Maria Alvaro's confession provided a sliver of truth in the midst of a sea of lies. Maria Alvaro's confession was the source of this impression. In spite of this, her commitment began to falter as the case progressed, and her conscience, which had been plain when it was initially brought to light, became blurred by confusion and anxiety as the case progressed. The investigation was thrown into chaos as a result of her rapid retraction of her earlier admissions, which caused the probe to become more troublesome. This resulted in the validity of her charges being called into doubt, which in turn resulted in the inquiry becoming somewhat more problematic. An effort was made by Mariana Finesse to clear her name of any responsibility for the crime that she was suspected of committing, and she did this by engaging in a campaign of deception. In order to shift the responsibility for the crime onto Maria, who had been her former collaborator, she placed the blame on Maria. By portraying herself as an innocent player in Maria's cruel game of manipulation and deceit, she attempted to reproduce the story of the catastrophe. She did this by portraying herself as a woman. This was accomplished by her systematic approach to the design of each and every fabrication. She was successful in accomplishing this goal by making an effort to alter the narrative that was being conveyed about the catastrophe. During the era in which Mariana was the focus of attention, psychologists analyzed her conduct and delved into the inner workings of her mind in trying to acquire an understanding of the complicated web of falsehoods that surrounded her acts. They were able to piece together an image of a woman who was under the influence of avarice and manipulation, and whose every behavior was geared to achieve whatever self-centered goals she had set for herself. This picture was constructed with each fresh piece of information that they obtained up until this point. Unanticipated circumstances led to the tragic death of Maria Alvaro, which was brought about by a turn of events that was completely unexpected. It was ultimately the burden of her own humiliation and sorrow that ultimately led to her passing away, and it was this burden that ultimately led to her passing away. Despite this, she left behind a mysterious message in her final moments, which served as a beacon of truth in the middle of the darkness of falsehood for those who heard it. By leaving this note behind, she was able to remove it. Due to the fact that she had passed away, the investigation into the case was reopened, and the image of her premature death rekindled the desire for justice. Both of these occurrences took place as a direct consequence on account of her passing. It was in front of the eyes of truth and justice that Mariana Finesse came to the realization that she had become trapped in the web of her own dishonesty. Each and every lie that she had ever told was brought to light. This occurred in spite of the fact that she had made every attempt to conceal the fact that she had been doing this without being discovered. It was in a courtroom that was full with tension and emotion that she was found guilty of the horrors that she had perpetrated. Her fate was decided by the weight of her own guilt, and she was found guilty of the atrocities that she had committed. Her fate was sealed. Despite the fact that Mariana exerted a great deal of effort to appeal her sentence, the unstoppable march of justice meant that she would always be held accountable for the consequences of her conduct. The petitions that she submitted, on the other hand, were not taken into consideration, and her fate was already decided. With each rejection, the walls of her prison cell closed in around her, and her formerly brilliant future was irrevocably obscured by the shadow of her own acts. Her future had been bright before, but now it was irreversibly obscured. In the past, there was a reason why her future seemed bright. As a brutal reminder of the perils that exist under the surface, the situation involving Diogo Goncalves served as an example of the hazards that lurk beneath the surface of partnerships that appear to be perfect in every respect. The depths of human depravity and the precariousness of trust were brought to light in this novel, which serves as a cautionary tale for anyone who would dare to go on a journey into the treacherous seas of love and betrayal. This story is a cautionary tale. For those folks who had the audacity to risk entering these waters, it served as a cautionary tale that they should think twice about. The tragic events that took place in the life of Diogo Goncalves came to an end, and a new chapter was waiting to be written after they were finished. The new chapter would be filled with a variety of stories, including those on deception, redemption, and interception, among other things. As we delve into the depths of mystery and uncover the realities that lay buried beneath the surface of everyday life, we would like to invite you to join us in our investigation of the shadowy corners of the human psyche. As part of our investigation of the human psyche, we extend this invitation to you. You should sign up for our newsletter as soon as possible in order to receive additional engaging tales that will keep you on the edge of your seat while you are reading them. Thank you for watching. I recommend our other crime videos.